everyone. In this video, we are going to take a look at some candy heart art, and we're going to learn about using watercolor and colored pencil to create value, some highlights, and dark shadows to make your art look more realistic and 3D. To start, we're going to take a look at some colored pencils. So here I have different values of blue. So this is going to be my regular blue, and then I have a couple light blues, and you might also need a black. And we're going to use these colors to add value of those highlights and shadows for your artwork. So I have drawn my candy heart and made it three-dimensional. And I am going to choose a side for my light source. So you can see I put a little sun on the right side, and that's where my light is going to come from. So on that side of my candy heart, I know my lighter values, my highlighted areas are going to be, and the shadows are going to be on the other side. So I have my light blue and my regular darker blue, and I'm going to put my hand on the edge, and that's going to help me press very lightly. Colored pencil is all about layering colors, so having one layer built up on top of another. You're going to build up your color with lots of layers. So I'm starting with my first layer of color with my light blue all around the top of my candy heart where it's going to be lighter. Now when I get to the bottom part, I'm going to go with my light blue where the light source is coming from. So you can see the light is on the right side, so that's the side I'm going to keep my light blue. So you should have a light layer of color, and now you can come and build up a little bit of darker color. I'm pressing very, very lightly. You can barely see it. We're building up that color slowly. It's a process. So you can see I'm going on the side that the light source is not on. So this will be the darker side. And so the light source will be on the right. That's going to be lighter. And I'm adding just a little light layer of regular blue on the other side. Now we will build this up more. It won't stay super light, but I'm pressing very, very gently with my pencil here. So now I'm going back with my light blue on the highlighted side here, and I'm pressing a little bit harder. So I'm going to add another layer of light blue with a medium pressure. So you can start seeing that brighter color coming through. And I am going to color with a medium pressure on the whole top of the candy heart again. So I'm going to go on top of the darker blue I already put. I'm putting that all around. Once I have that light blue layered, I'm going to come back and add a little bit more of my darker blue on top. So it's another layer. I'm pressing medium light. I don't want to see any of my pencil lines. I want it to blend. So I'm coming in with a little bit more to make that shadow just a little bit darker on that side of my candy heart. So it's not pressing hard, pressing kind of lightly and building up just a little bit darker on that side that's away from the light source. It's not really, really dark, just adding a little bit more of a shadow. So now I'm going to start filling in this bottom part. I'm again using my darker blue and my lighter blue. So I'm going to start with a light layer. It will get darker. I'm going to build it up and make it darker. But I'm going to start by pressing lightly and a medium light pressure to start that first layer. And then when I get to the side where my light source is coming from, I'm pressing very, very lightly to start. We're going to build that color up, and we're going to make it brighter and darker as we go along. So I also have my light blue on the light source side, making that light color. Now this area down at the bottom is going to be darker than the area at the top. So I need to make sure that that light blue is not the same as the top. It is getting darker. I'm pressing a little bit harder to get it brighter and darker than the top layer. Now on the left side of my candy heart, I'm going to make it dark, and you can even add a little bit of black onto the edge that's furthest away, that's not going to get any light on it. So adding that darker shadow is going to help your candy heart look a little bit more realistic and more 3D. Now remember, you're still building those light layers, so pressing light to medium light so that you don't see any of those colored pencil lines. You want them to blend together. So a light layer of black, and then go back with your blue, and then go back with your black, and layer them on top of each other and blend them together. So now I'm going to add a shadow on the opposite side of the light source. So I'm using my pencil and kind of adding a little blob on that left side. So if my sun is on my right, the shadow is going to be on the left. You could kind of try to stay with the heart kind of shape. I've got just kind of like an ovally shape. And I'm going to start with my darker blue very lightly. Again, we're going to layer. You don't want it to be black. You don't want it to be as dark as it can be. That will stand out. So I'm going to put a light layer of my blue, pressing lightly. And then I am going to come in with some black and add a layer of black to kind of add that shadowy dark side. It's not going to get black into a shadow. It's going to be more of a gray blue. So I'm layering a light layer of black and a light layer of blue. And there's my shadow. So now I'm going to go through the process of using light and dark colors with the watercolor paints. So I already drew my candy hearts 3D. I have my light source on the left hand side. So my highlights will be on the top left and my shadows will be on the bottom right. I have a water cup, a mixing tray, and my watercolors, and a paintbrush. We are going to be using a mixing tray because that's going to help you get those lighter values and mix those darker values and not do that on your paper. So I am using red. I'm putting a blob of red on my mixing tray, and you're going to use water to make those lighter values. So with watercolor, you're not going to add white to it. We don't have white on our tray. We are going to make our color lighter by using more water. And then to make it darker, we'll use less water and a teeny tiny bit of black. So I have added water and mixed it together with my red on my mixing tray, and to make this very, very light value of red. And I'm going to just fill in my heart with this red, and I'm using water, more water, to blend it. You don't want to have like a big giant puddle on your paper, but you're going to use a good amount of water to mix your values and blend them together. So I have filled my heart with this lighter value, and I'm going to add a little bit of a darker area just on the bottom right side where there's not as much light hitting it. I'm using water to kind of blend it into the lighter side. This is difficult and challenging to do. You want to go slow so that you don't get those lines in there. And if you do get some watercolor lines, use water to try to blend those away the best you can. So now that I have the top part finished, I am going to let that dry, because before I can do my bottom part, the top part needs to be dry so they don't blend and bleed together. So now the top part is pretty dry. I can start making my colors in my mixing tray for the bottom part, which is going to be darker. So I have a blob of just red. I haven't added anything to it, just a little bit of water and red, and that's going to be my darkest area over on the bottom right side. So I'm going to be using more paint and less water to make that red dark. I will also add a little bit of black to it in a little bit. So on the left side where my light is going to be, I want it to be darker than the top, but not as dark as it can go. So I'm using a little bit more water on that side to make it a little lighter, and I'm going to blend those together in the middle there. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of black to my red to start adding just a little bit more of a darker red on my darkest part down at the bottom right hand corner. And I'm just adding a little bit at a time here, blending it together. And I am going to let this dry before I add my shadow. So now my paper is dry and I'm going to add a shadow like I did on this purple one here. So like always, you need to keep in mind your light source. So on that side is the light, and I'm going to make my shadow on the opposite side of the light. I'm using my mixing tray. I'm going to add a little bit of black to my mixing tray and water, and then I'm also going to add a blob of some red. Now my red is almost gone, but there's still some in the corner, so you can see that I'm using my brush and I'm kind of twirling it in the corner to get the rest of that paint out of there. So I'm going to add a little bit of black to my red to make it a darker red. And before I start, I'm going to go ahead and just very lightly with my pencil trace where my shadow is going to go. And I'm going to very carefully start filling in that shadow area. And you can see I've used quite a bit of water, so it is a lighter color. You don't want, again, just like with the colored pencils, you don't want a really harsh, dark shadow. I'm going to slowly add a little bit more dark black in there to make it darker, but I'm going to layer it and blend it so it's not just a black shadow. So I am just slowly and just a little at a time, adding more color to make it just a little darker slowly. You can always add more. You can't always take away. So here is the final candy heart with its shadow.